Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, Anthony Sneed will be co-hosting with me, and we'll be talking about how cybersecurity might kill your company. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Richard Hollis. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, welcome to
I'm so
me.
glad
Thank you.
you could. Yeah.
Thank
So
you very
glad you
much.
could join. Can you share about your background?
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Richard Hollis. I'm the director of a company called Risk Crew. We're located in London, and we are a consultancy, meaning we don't sell product. We sell uh, policies, procedures, and processes to secure companies from cybersecurity breaches. So what does that mean? That means we do things like risk assessments. What are you trying to protect and why? What's going to happen to you if you fail to protect that? We do things like ethical hacking, simulated hacking, where we break into business systems and then show our clients how we did that so they can secure those systems, all the way through to things like incident response and disaster recovery, business continuity things. So it's the basics in cybersecurity 101, the minimum that any company should have to stay safe.
Excellent. Well, and obviously that's an ever-growing problem in today's world. So I think what would be very interesting to start with is maybe what are the most common types of cybersecurity threats, right? I mean, I know we all probably know about the phishing scams or whatever that you get via email, but what are the ones that are the biggest risks to corporations?
Well, that's a question I'll take the backdoor answer to, meaning everybody, there's a lot of media given on, be afraid, be very afraid. There's ransomware, there's viruses and Trojans and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. For me, the biggest threat when I talk to a C exec is do they understand what cyber is? Do they understand what their appetite for that kind of risk is? So for me, I'll start at one of the easiest ways I get to understand the maturity of a client is to talk to them about what is your risk appetite. You see, for a guy like me, I've been doing this for 30 years, and cybersecurity is an oxymoron. There's no such thing. No such thing as a secure computer. Never was, never will be. The whole nature of computer science is to reach out and connect and say, here I am, anybody want to connect with me? Okay, so it's inherently insecure, computer security. So what I'm looking for when I talk to a client is his understanding of that inherent insecurity and his understanding what cybersecurity is. So if he understands cybersecurity is an oxymoron, then the natural leap is, what is cybersecurity? It's risk management. It's to identify those risks, like ransomware and denial of service attacks and social engineering, and then minimize those risks. You can never negate them, but minimize them to an appetite you're willing to risk. What is that? If you had a breach tomorrow, and the impact was $100,000, 100,000 pounds, 100,000 euros, is that within your appetite? Could you live to fight another day? You don't want to breach, but could you bounce back from that easily? Yes, that's what's in. Is it 200,000, 300? Is it £1,000,000, $1,000,000? Is it 2 million euro? What is your appetite for a breach? Because you cannot come to a state of full security and never ever have a security incident. So it's like risk management. It's exactly like fire life safety. What's your appetite for a fire? And you do many things, but at the end of the day, you can never prevent a fire. You can never absolutely say we'll never have a fire at this location. So the same thing with oxymoron. It's an attitude. With this oxymoron that's cybersecurity, it's your attitude as a business exec. How do you view that? Do you understand this is risk management? And if you understand it's risk management, then you have to identify what's my appetite for a breach. And then you go into it with a clarity in terms of how much money you're going to spend to prevent that, to make sure that the next day and the next day you get up and you can fight another day.
Well, so Anthony's the expert, and I'm kind of naive. So we'll start from my perspective a little bit, and I guess the thing we get a lot at our company is, hey, Mary Jane, Jana, this is Jana. I'm in a meeting and I need you to go buy me a bunch of gift cards. Right. And so, they try to convince them to go buy gift cards and then give over the gift card number and the pen. That's like what we experience a lot on a regular basis, right? Somebody impersonating me or another senior leader in the organization asking people to go out and buy gift cards, or you get the the emails where it's like, you know, click here. We don't know what I don't know what happens if you click here, but I know it's not good. So we teach our people, don't click there.
It's never good when you click there.
Yeah.
Not even on a regular website is it good.
No, exactly.
But, you know, so if you're talking to somebody like me who knows there are scary things out there, what are some of the scariest things that might happen to my company?
Well, I think, Janet, you're talking about one of the most vulnerable things, and that's people. That's exploiting people for unauthorized access. So a hacker, a bad guy, you know, a cyber criminal will look if he targets your company and says, how do I get into this company and get data out of the company? Do I do it through the technology? Do I come in through a firewall, through a VPN, or do I come in through a process? You know, can I physically access the building and plug in a Trojan into the system and download or upload a virus or download, or do I come in through people? And that's what you're talking about. Social engineering is identifying people who have access to the information that you want, be that financial information, credit card data, intellectual property, and then manipulating them for the exploit that you need. And that comes in the realm of picking up a phone and calling you and say, hi, Jana, I work down in the IT department, and we're going to roll out a new Microsoft update, and I need your password, and you give it to me. You give it to me on the phone because I say I work for you and I'm in another building or in another location. So that's exploiting a person's an employee's naivete. They don't understand what they're giving away could lead to unauthorized access to the business information assets. And that comes in many forms. You see that as, like I said, phishing. Click here. I send you an email saying, hi, I'm with so-and-so, click on this link. And if you click on a link, you run the risk of allowing remote access or a download of something that would work in the background to enable remote access to somebody who shouldn't have it. So that's our biggest weakness. We click on anything, as you said, Anthony. We're just anything I send you with it that looks interesting. Here's a free loyalty card. Here's a free trip to Disneyland. Just click here. You click on that, and what happens is an application runs in the background that downloads into maybe your browser, into your desktop, that enables other activities in the background, and you don't know that. And that in my mind,
Okay.
Yeah, where I was going with that, guys, is in that mind, people are the hardest in terms of protecting your business. You can protect your technology. You can go out there and buy the gadgets and the bells and the whistles and all the things that are supposed to stop unauthorized access to your systems. You can do that. You can encrypt data. You can put up all these security controls, but the one that's never really that you can control is the human element. Somebody who's logging on, who has access, who could be tricked into giving away something that they shouldn't.
So Richard, yeah, thanks. I want to just kind of bounce off of that. So I think it's becoming well known that the human element, that's the weak link of organizations when it comes to security, right? But what do we do? How do we help ourselves by ensuring that our people, the people that work for us, the people that help support the company are equipped to recognize these threats and how to address these threats? What did they do when they recognize a threat?
Well, recognizing the threat is everything. Understanding, like I said, you started what's your appetite for this risk, and then you look around and you see things differently. You see, you can look at what we call the threat landscape and look at all the bad things out there that can happen to you, like ransomware or denial of service or Trojans or viruses and malware and all these bad things. Okay, but once you understand your risk appetite, your appetite for a risk, then you'll see the risks of what kind of impact they'll have on your business. And so the first thing you want to do is prioritize that view and understanding these are the big things, these are the bad things, and these bad things can happen through these attack vectors of people, process, or my technology. And it brings you an automatic prioritization of you suddenly start to things and you see it, like we all did for ransomware. Here's a piece of software that can lock down your systems, and if you don't have access to your systems, you're out of business. Okay, and we all underestimated the impact of ransomware on our business, but that should have been prioritized. But at the end of the day, ransomware is what? It's malware, all right? It's an application that's designed to encrypt data, and you have to pay for the decryption key. So we thought, oh, it's just there's a lot of malware out there. There's viruses, there's Trojans, there's a lot of bad things out there. But suddenly ransomware comes along, and it's just malware. It's run of the ordinary day malware, but it has a significant, a much different, more severe impact on your business because you can't get access to the data that you need to make money. All right, and we all underestimated that. So, but once you understand, oh wait, when it comes to malware, we have an appetite for this kind of malware, or this kind, but any malware that actually prevents me from doing business, you'd prioritize that and how you address those threats. So I'm repeating myself to say, if you understand your risk appetite, then you understand what you can't recover from, what would really have a significant impact, and you deal with those first, second, third, and then through all of it. But getting back to this people, process, and technology idea, this is how you can experience an attack: through your systems, through your people, or through the processes that where your people interact with your systems. Okay, and I see those threats as these are the surfaces that hackers can get into your systems. And the biggest thing we all do wrong is we put all of our cybersecurity spend into technology. We go out there and buy that widget, that gadget, that firewall, that intrusion detection system, that intrusion prevention system, that all these little things that we're told, buy this thing to secure your systems. And we neglect the other two attack vectors. We neglect our people, we neglect our process. So one of the first tests for me, I say, how much do you have to spend on your cybersecurity budget? And they say $100,000, £100,000. And I said, well, if I were you, I'd take and split 1/3 into people controls, educating your people, 1/3 in protecting your process, and 1/3 in technology. And then you spread it all the way across. Instead of putting all of your money on black, you just put all of it on, protecting your technologies, and you're buying these sexy firewalls and encryption systems. And you're getting exploited. There are vulnerabilities that are getting exploited through the other two attack vectors. So naturally, if you saw the playing field, if you saw how these threats are enacted, you'd want to disperse and make sure that you're equally addressing those threats in each one of those vectors. Does that make sense? So yeah, and that's what we all do wrong, Anthony. We go out and we want to buy something, check a box, and say there our cybersecurity sorted, but we neglect our people. We don't.
This is what we see, right? These are the tangible things that we feel like if we do this, it's going to solve some problems, right? So we know that we go out and buy the latest gadgets and we pop them in, we're good, right? I mean, that's kind of the mentality.
It is, but now you're pulling a string on me and I say, okay, yeah, it is and it isn't. First of all, where do we get these messages from? We get them from cybersecurity vendors who say, be afraid, be very afraid. Be afraid of ransomware. And we just said, what is ransomware? Ransomware is malware. Do you know of anybody who isn't running anti-malware on their desktop, their laptop? Everybody has it. I work in a company, we've got 3 different types of malware, and you still run the risk. All right, why is that? And I'll tell you why that is because the anti-malware products we buy from vendors who say, be afraid, be very afraid of ransomware, they don't work. They worked 2 or 3 years ago, but they're not up to date with what the threat actors are using as malware. Okay, so we get malware, and what do? We freak out. We say, oh, geez, we got ransomware. But ransomware is malware. And we forget that, didn't we buy some anti-malware solution? Don't we have 20, 30 of these? What's the problem? And we don't connect the dots that the problem is that the product we bought does not work. Right? Cybersecurity products, we assume that they work. They don't work. They're always a step behind.
Like the kitchen gadgets that you buy from the shop and you take it home and realize that your fryer doesn't fry things like it was supposed to.
That's right. Except Tupperware, Anthony. Tupperware still works to this day. I swear by Tupperware. But
Tupperware is going to age well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to pick
That's
up
a classic.
I just want to pick up one of the key words that kind of resonated with me is you said underestimate, and I think that probably sums up cybersecurity really well, because we do underestimate, and sometimes we put our head in the sand and we don't want to estimate at all. And I'm just curious, in your experience, people are coming to you asking for help. How much of this is we're just doing due diligence. We want to know what our risks are and how to mitigate them. But how much of it is, oh, Richard, we're in a bad state. We just had this incident happen. We don't know how to recover from it. Is it more people coming to you post
reactive
incident
versus proactive?
being able to be proactive? Yeah.
It's always post. You don't understand the threat of lightning till you get hit by lightning. Otherwise it's just an intellectual concept. And once you do, you suddenly get religion and you're very pro. So yes, a lot of our clients come to us after a breach, after they've experienced something bad, which is the absolute worst time. It's like after you get into a car accident, running out and buying car insurance and trying to protect yourself. But it's just but that's the way we feel. We're very trusting, and until we have to do something, we really don't do it, because, as you said, we've underestimated the threat. We've just underestimated it. And part of that underestimation of that businesses do is they don't understand that the data that they hold has intrinsic value for a threat actor, for a hacker. And they fail to understand that all data equals cash. Okay, we live where data equals cash. I don't care if it's how tall you are, what conditioner you use in your hair, yes, where you live, but to where your blood type, your DNA. Data equals cash, and they underestimate the value of the data that they process, store, and transmit to a bad guy who could use that data and sell that data on the dark web for cash. And that's it.
Can we make that more practical? So, like, obviously there's ones we know, right? You got HIPAA information. I think most people understand like what the value is there. You've got credit card, right? Information, bank accounts. Okay, so that but let's take that aside. So we're a consulting company, right? So we're just advising companies on how to run projects, helping them run projects. We don't process credit card transactions. We don't store people's bank accounts. Well, I guess we do in our HRIS, but so what are the things that somebody like that's not a transactional company, what are they going to come after us for? What is our data worth? What is the value of our information on the market?
Okay, when I say all data has intrinsic value, all data has value to someone. Okay, to someone. Like I said, if you have a database of what hair conditioner people use, if you have a database of right-handers versus left-handers, that has intrinsic value to someone who's out there basing other intellectual property or financial transactions on their ability to predict who uses what kind of conditioner, who's right-handed, who's left-handed, etc. So it all depends on the buyer.
So they're not always using it to do something bad to other people. Then what you're saying is sometimes they're using it to, like, a company then gets a competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. To sell to a competitor, to sell to a company. So if I'm out there and I'm doing research on, I'm going to develop a new hair conditioner. Okay, and I don't want to spend 2-3 years doing all that research. I'll just go out there and buy that research off the dark web. So there's that. There's just to make that hyper step in research that you need as a competitor, you can go out and buy that. Nothing's preventing you from doing that. So all right, that's the now jump ahead and look at things like DNA or stem cell research or blood types or dental records or something that's uniquely personal to the end user, to the data subject, as we say. And that's I think where we all get it wrong. We don't understand that this is not ones and zeros. All right, this is data about people's lives. This is data about somebody's grandmother or grandfather, husband, wife, children. Okay, and when you put it in perspective, you suddenly understand if I'm protecting people about data's lives, and maybe that's what toothpaste they use or what size shoe they have, but this is a personal thing, and taken in the aggregate, this information may or may not be private, be of some sort of sensitivity to the data subject themselves. Do I want you to know what kind of hair conditioner I use? Maybe not, but maybe so. But it's not the business's purview to make that judgment, and they don't. They just think, this is the hair conditioner data. So it could be very innocuous to the business, but it's not to the data subject, to the people, to the person who does that. The story I'd like to tell is my sister, who's very unassuming, and I wouldn't say naive, but very innocent. And she went out to see she loves baseball, and she went out to see a baseball game, and it was bat day. When they hand you a bat. And she's like, "Whoa, okay, great." But this year, when they gave her bat, they said, "All we need is a swab from your DNA, and for that, you get a free 1-year subscription to some ancestry, lineage where you can read your family tree for free for a year, and after that." My sister actually did that. She gave her her gave a swab, gave it to get her bat, and went home very happy. She told me about it afterwards. I said, well, you gave your DNA away for a bat. Now that's sitting in some database. And what she failed to understand is your DNA is my DNA. I'm your brother. And suddenly you've given that, and that will, my
Your
DNA
entire
now will be
family,
used.
right?
Exactly. My DNA will be used for a transactional value. When some distant cousin of mine requests a family tree and they charge them for that. So as businesses commoditized personal data, no matter how strange or innocuous it is, at our expense, at the end user's expense. So my sister got a bat out of it. I got nothing, and my DNA sitting in a database someplace, and I didn't sign up for that. I'm sorry, I didn't sign up for that. Now, my DNA will tell you whether I'm prone to what diseases, and when I go out to apply for insurance, health insurance, and I don't get it, and I'm not given a reason, maybe, just maybe, that company sold it to, a health insurance provider. And that's the way the world works. So businesses don't understand the impact on the end user when they're processing, storing, transmitting that data, and they think it's innocuous. It's not their credit card data. It's not this. It's not that. It's what conditioner they use, for crying out loud. But you'd be surprised at how many people look at DNA as just another data set, because doesn't have anybody's name attached to it.
I want to know what conditioner Anthony uses though.
Well, I don't want to.
It's been on my mind too, Anthony. See, it is private to you, isn't it? We hit a nerve, didn't we?
So, but I just want just one point though. I think that should be clarified is not just about the data that the people might know you have. Sometimes attackers don't really care. They're just hoping you have some data, right? So it's not just about the fact that you don't have anything to give away. Sometimes they won't know that. So they'll do their best to try to get in and steal what information that they can. If they find some valuable information, that's a win. If not, they move on to somebody else, right? So that just elevates the kind of urgency to be able to protect your company.
Exactly. But for me, Anthony, that doesn't make the threat any less real. If some kid comes along who knows how to get into systems and starts and looks around and says, I don't see any credit cards in here. I see a air conditioner database. It's the organized cyber criminal who understands data equals cash, understands the data market on the black web, and understands today I'm looking for people who are right-handed, and goes out and targets companies and takes that data, whether that's DNA or whether that's voting records, or do you own a gun, do you not own a gun, little tiny things that profile, and that are very valuable for people looking for a list of all the people who own a gun in this state or who vote this way in that state. Very, very valuable information. So if you know what you're looking for, you can pretty much go out and shop for a buyer. And you're right. There are people who just say, oh, I'll take what I can get. And they come in and they take a database, and it's a reservation system for an airline. And they'll just put it up on the web and see what they can get for it. But the value,
and that's what it is, right? It's what can I get for this, right?
Yes.
So all data is fair game.
All data is fair game. That's why I say when I talk to somebody, you have to get all data equals cash. How much cash is depending on the buyer. Okay,
exactly.
But it is intrinsically value in and of itself. And as a business, until you recognize that, you will never give it the protection it deserves. One of the very first things I say, well, I'll come in and talk to a board, and I'll say, please raise your hand if you have personal data in your business systems. And honestly, I've heard, are you kidding me? I wouldn't put my personal data in there. Where do your kids go to school? Yeah, so exactly. But I'm saying they don't have any skin in the game. They're holding DNA databases or marketing databases, but it's not data on their family. It's not data on on their family's DNA or blood types or medical or dental records. And so they've got this cognitive dissonance. Pardon me. Between them and the data, it's somebody else's. It's ones and zeros. It's not mine. There's a guy, tell you a real quick story. There's a guy who I have lunch with, so I'm out in London, and every month or so I sit down with this guy, and he sells firewalls, and he works for a firewall, one of the largest on the planet. He does a really good living selling firewalls, and I have lunch with him every couple months, and the last time I saw him, I sat down with him. He comes in, he's red-faced, he's upset. I said, what's wrong? He said, somebody hacked into my laptop, and I'm like, oh, the irony of that. You sell firewalls for a living room. Isn't that funny? And I'm having a good time. I said, but why? So, okay, so what? And he said, yeah, and they took pictures of my family off And now
Oh,
he's mad
now it's
because,
get personal.
yeah, now exactly, Anthony. Now it's personal. Now someone out there has pictures of his wife and children on a beach someplace, and it's personal, and it's touched. And this is a guy who makes his living from selling cybersecurity products. And it's clear to me that we are all disconnected from the value of this data until, as you said, it happens to you, and then it's too late. Somebody's looking at pictures of your kids, and you're not going to ever get those pictures back.
So we had one that happened to us, and I'm curious, and you may or may not have a hypothesis on this. So somebody opened a bank account in our company's name, and they used our tax ID, which is almost, I mean, it's not public, but it's pretty accessible, right? Like, because you give that tax ID to every client that you do business with. You can find it. I don't think it's too hard to find, right? So they used the appropriate tax ID. They used our corporate address. For some reason, they used my email address, which is how I, even worked it out that they did this. But then they also used a fake email address, right? So that they got the information as well. What are they going to do with that? I mean, they're not going to do anything because it's been shut down. But
well, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, Jana, because what that is just a one-on-one business fraud. All right, that's business identity theft, where they've duplicated your business. They'll set up a post office box, and they'll start engaging with suppliers and buy services from suppliers and say, invoice us. And so, and so they receive the goods or the services. It could be a flat screen TV they ordered for their quote unquote conference room. Okay. And have it delivered here, and that's delivered, and send us the invoice. And if somebody will go in, use your business registration number and look it up and say, oh yeah, sure, we'll invoice them on 30 days, 60-day payment terms. And so they buy the goods and services, they close it down, they move shop. Same underlying concept as identity theft, as stealing somebody's identity and going out and ordering goods and services, and then just moving on, buying a car, you get what you can get. That's low fraudsters who do that, but you would be surprised at how incredibly lucrative that is, and so simple to do, because like you said, that's all publicly available information. And it has intrinsic value to somebody who could use it to commit a fraud, but you don't think of that when you're just when you're moving that data around. You don't understand that this data in the right hands could be used to commit fraud, and we could have a financial impact from that.
But like, how do you, I mean, other than, so again, like you said, something happens and so you react to it, and I did my best to go do research and decided to go sign up for, I don't know, Experian or somebody who can monitor business information, but they're not out there monitoring bank accounts. Like, so like, how do you even prevent that?
You can't. This is what I remember when I said, I opened up and saying cybersecurity oxymoron. At the end of the day, there are things you just cannot prevent. And the real question then is, in terms of risk management, can you deal with it? And you apparently have. And yes, it causes you inconvenience. It causes you a financial impact, but at the end of the day, it didn't put you out of business. And no, it's a nuisance. It's a nuisance, but it's out there as a threat, and you can't. There's no such thing as an absolute, and you just can't do it. It's always something like that. You and I can be walking down the street, and we can always get mugged, get robbed. And you can't prevent that. You can't prevent that. That's the kind of comparison I'm making. Is at the end of the day, there's just crime's going to happen. I wouldn't. Yes, they used data that was that we process, store, and transmit on computer systems. But at the end of the day, it's like you and I walking down the street, and somebody comes up to us and says, "Give me your wallet." You just there's nothing you could do. You could have walked on the other side of the street. You could have taken a different route. You could have taken a car, a bus, a taxi. It still could happen to you in a different context. And there are things we cannot prevent. And that's part of the hysteria about cybersecurity. Oh, be afraid, be very afraid. You're going to get hacked. There's cyber criminals. And yeah, okay, yes. But the same is true of life. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Fire can burn down your house. People can rob you. It's part of the misunderstanding of what you can prevent, and that's what I feel is important. Is that people understand what's my appetite for things I can't prevent, and what should I look at that could put me out of business, and deal with that.
So when you say like you understand your threshold of risk and you come up with some number, how do you decide then how to pinpoint you as an individual company, your biggest vulnerabilities, and where to put the dollars then to protect yourself?
Mm-hmm. First of all, let me make two things clear. One is that's the board's responsibility to determine what the risk appetite is for the company. That's they're legally responsible to do that, to run and govern the company. That they should understand, sit around as a board and say, our appetite is this. This is how much we do withstand. The other number that they need to know is what's our capacity for a breach. Okay, so an appetite is how much can you bounce back from. Then there's a little tolerance, a little more after that that would be very inconvenient, but still. And then there's your capacity. What line, if you crossed it in a breach, would put us out of business? All right. Would $1 million hack put us out of business, this company? Well, if you're selling flowers on the internet, yeah, you're done. You're not going to sell flowers anymore. But if you're IBM, it's an inconvenience. And so to know those two numbers, the difference between what's my appetite and what'll put me out of business. And I'm also would take that over to you and I and Anthony as people. We should understand that as we take a laptop and connect to Amazon or make a flight reservation, that we have to understand what's our appetite for. Before I put my credit card in here, can I, if somebody sold this from me, can I take the repercussion? And we don't do that. We absolutely don't do that. We assume that the company's going to look out for us or something. I don't know, but so both in a personal sense and a business sense. Now, to do that, the next thing is to then the company should, once they understand the line in the sand that this is how much we could deal with, this amount would put us out of business. Then they go out and look and do a risk assessment. All right, as literally as look at the way that they process, store, and transmit these data, these information assets that make their business cash, make them money. All right, and look at the threats to them, be them ransomware or social engineering or some sort of technical threat, and then prioritize those to understand all the threats to their business. That's done by a simple threat assessments. That you're looking at, just like you do a threat assessments for fire life safety, where you look at, okay, or wheelchair access, we don't have, in our business, that you come in and you look at the way that your business does business and make sure that, okay, in the event of a fire, these are the fire doors, this is the fire alarm, these are the smoke detectors, and you understand everything that you have in place to identify a fire. And my analogy is the business understands everything they have in place to identify a cyber breach and respond to it. And then they realize how much they have to do to identify, respond, and recover from a cyber attack by conducting an assessment of the way that they process, store, and transmit their information assets. It's as old as the hills. It goes way back to like the way the insurance industry does an assessment of your driving record before they give you insurance. To understand, have you been arrested for drunk driving or reckless driving, or how many accidents you've been in, et cetera. It's understanding how you do business and understanding what the potential impact is, and then looking at the threats. And that's when I say, when you do that, when you understand your appetite, then you'll see all the threats out there. You'll see them very different, and you'll understand ransomware for what it is. That'll stop my business. This other stuff over here is nuisance, but that'll stop my business, and you deal with that.
But I guess some of us have a lot of naivety around that, right? Like, I have no idea what threats might exist against my company. Obviously, I know the ones that we've been exposed to, but I mean, because like you think about manufacturing, well, a threat could be that they could shut down your operations by somehow hacking into machines and making them stop. But some of them aren't so obvious. So how do we even understand what we're at risk to encounter?
I recommend one word: Google. Seriously, and to small businesses, if you're selling flowers on the web and you don't understand all this stuff, go to Google and type in how to conduct a risk assessment of my business, and you get thousands and thousands of free pages. And you know what? The other side of that is if you really want to understand the vulnerabilities associated with your business, think like a hacker. Hack into your business. You don't know how to do that? Go to Google and type in how to hack a mobile phone, how to hack a smart TV, and you'll get video, step-by-step video instruction. And you'd be foolish not to do that against your own business. So all this information is out there. All you have to do is put yourself in the mind of a bad guy, in the mind of a hacker. You think like a hacker, you look at your business and you see all the vulnerabilities that you could or couldn't get in. You don't know how to think like a hacker? Go to Google. Go to Google and get step-by-step instructions about how to conduct a risk assessment or how to hack into your business. Are you worried about a new cloud platform? You're about to roll out AWS? Go to Google and type in, how do you hack into AWS? Go to YouTube and get a 2-hour seminar by some, and it's all legal, but this is what people do. This is whether they're kids, they're 16, 17-year-olds, they're bored. This is how hackers learn how to hack, is they ask. They ask, they have inquisitive minds, but we don't do that. We don't think like a hacker. We don't think like, it's like the analogy is, as you look at your house and say, how safe I am, lock up your house on the outside and try to break in, and think like a thief, think like a robber. And until you do that, you'll never.
There used to be a TV show about that.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. That makes sense because if you do that and you look at your own home or business and look for vulnerabilities, you'll see them a lot clearer. But in the meantime, you're living in that home, you're using the kitchen, you're upstairs in the bedroom, you're doing this and that, and you don't see the vulnerabilities that people see as they walk by your house or or assess your business for its vulnerabilities to get in and get out like a hacker. It's the same, absolutely the same idea. Bad guys think the same.
So to take, I guess, maybe one of the questions Anthony kind of asked about at the beginning, but reframing it a little differently, how do you get your people to care? Because, right, like you're thinking of these larger organizations, and yeah, maybe they care about not getting caught for phishing or whatever, because companies run tests, and you get rewarded or punished if you don't pass. But like, how do you get them to relate to the possible threats and to have the appropriate level of awareness and prevention?
That's not easy because we all have different thresholds of privacy. Anthony wants to protect his hair conditioner that he uses,
Again,
as much as I want to protect my. You notice I haven't mentioned it, and everybody looks at their own data set and thinks, oh, what I bought on Amazon isn't. I don't care if people see that. I don't care if people see that. So that's part of the problem. We all have different thresholds of personal privacy. Me, I don't like my home address out there. I don't care, and anything. So that's it. And we'll never be on the same threshold. But for me, it's the trick is, or the challenge is making it personal and having people connect. So when I give security awareness training into a big company, you never talk about protecting the company's data. They don't really care. They don't have any skin in the game. It's, they just go to you talk about how did you protect your data? Your home address, your voting record, your blood type. If somebody got this, and you start to make them aware of this idea that I said that data equals cash. All data equals cash. Your data, my data, your data equals cash. Let's start with that shirt. Where did you buy that shirt? How much was it? What credit card did you put it on? Did you buy it in the fall, summer, spring? And show them a data set that may or may not be attractive to a bad guy, and connect the dots, as it were, to this idea that your data has intrinsic value, and then bring them over. So if your data has intrinsic value, you can imagine what the business's data that value is, and try to bring them over and connect them to the idea that, all right, we process, store, and transmit data about our customers or our employees that has this, and this data should not fall outside of this company. And then if you can do that, they start to look, they'll go to work the next morning and start to understand, well, I thought this was just, and that's easy to do with things like credit cards, that you understand we lose this credit card has a direct impact on our customer's life, their credit rating. But there's other data, like you said, that whether it's intellectual property, medical data is hard to get people to understand. Wait a minute, this is somebody's DNA. This can't be, sent across on an email unencrypted, for crying out loud. So it's finding those individual thresholds of personal privacy, finding a uniformity, and then mapping that back to the business is my only hope, because we all don't share the same idea of privacy.
It's like the arguments I have with my stepdad about TikTok. I'm like, I don't care if the Chinese know I watch dance videos and music videos and leadership. Like, why do I care if they know all that about me? And he's like, can't believe that I would possibly use TikTok and, that it could be. I'm like, I don't, what does it say about me? That I like music and I like dancing and I like leadership? Like, oh well.
And then you wonder why you get an unsolicited email to attend our dancing leaders
No.
seminar for 2 night, and you
Right?
think, huh,
Exactly.
how did they
Very
know that? How
specific,
did
very
they?
targeted.
Yes,
I'm
Yeah.
that's targeted
unsubscribed.
data.
Like, well, oh well.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, Jenna. We commoditize. We live in a commoditized
Mm,
platform, and whether it's social media or things like TikTok, that's what it is. That's why Mark
mm,
Zuckerberg's a billionaire, and you and I aren't. He understands that all data equals cash, and he will
mm,
sell what you
I
post.
think
You'll
I think
post a
it's what's
kitten.
very interesting is that you can take a piece of data over here and a piece of data over here and a piece of data over here, completely different, distinct systems, pull that together, run some analysis on it, and all of a sudden you build a model around this
That's
individual
it.
or around the business. And I think
That's
that's
it.
what we don't really appreciate is that, yes, I'm just watching videos on TikTok, but I just hopped over here onto Facebook and just looked at this post. Then I went on to LinkedIn and looked at this article. There's somebody in the background mapping all of this stuff,
Exactly. Adding
right?
your
And all of a sudden, they're building a
adding your
profile.
geolocation to that, and
Yeah.
all the other personal data to your DNA, and it's amazing that. And if you understood that, if you just saw a data set like that of what commercial entities compile on you and show you in one
Mm.
shot, you'd faint. You'd think, I didn't know that was out there. But it is. Everything we do in the web, every place we go, everything we buy, every time we buy it, our likes, our dislikes, all is that is recorded, analyzed, and fed back to sell us things. And now that, okay, so we apparently have bought into that and said, okay, I love the idea that Mark Zucker or Jeff Bezos tells me the next book I'm going to buy. I didn't think of that book, and they sacrifice that privacy for convenience. But they don't understand that Amazon keeps that data, and hackers will target and hack into Amazon and take that data from Amazon or any other vendor. So as our vendors accumulate all this data on our lives, it is stolen because they process, store, and transmit it in unprotected systems. And the bad guys know that. So they target and take that data away from the Amazons and the Facebooks of the world. How many times have you read that Facebook's had a breach? And ask yourself, why would somebody break into, who's not Mark Zuckerberg, why would somebody break in and steal that data? Well, there's your answer. This is what I've been yapping about for 30 minutes, is that because it's intrinsically valuable. And so Amazon, Facebook, and please, somebody at the end of this podcast, type in Facebook hacked and look at the list of all the times, and then ask yourself, well, somebody sees the intrinsic value of my data, or TikTok, what videos I watch on TikTok. Who is that? And it's, believe it or not, it's not always the Chinese government.
excellent.
I don't know
Anthony,
about how much time we have here, but I've got we haven't touched on a subject, and I'm a little bit surprised because the biggest craze right now is AI, right? AI is getting into every aspect of life. And I just want to kind of quickly get your thoughts on how you think AI is shaping cybersecurity, both from a offensive perspective and a defensive perspective.
I don't know if you can see on the podcast for your listeners how old I am, but I'm coming up on retirement and AR, and I'm kind of happy that I am. AI keeps me awake at night. It kept me awake at night 5 years ago, 10 years ago. AI is not an overnight sensation. It's been sitting on the back burner for years and years. We are starting to hit the tipping point. Now, the way that AI can be used as an attack weapon from a threat actor, from a hacker, is stunning. I mean, it's mind-boggling to have a machine break into your systems rather than a 16-year-old kid program some application that breaks into your systems. All right. So, having said that, the real tectonic plate shift that's going on is watch how databases that feed AI are being identified as breached. So the bad code that gets into the data that AI uses for whatever its commercial application is being compromised. All right, so that's what. Look at just literally 2 days ago, these Docker GitHubs, huge that are being used to compile and process data using for AI commercial applications. That's where people go. They go right to the source, because if you can compromise the code that's used for the AI application, you own the AI outcome. All right, so
Yeah,
that to me should stick out way, and this is why I'm not big on regulation, but this is where to put the biggest fix, the quickest place, is to understand the coding used in AI can be insecure, and that has incredible ramifications for all of us. And that's my only focus right now is not the commercial applications, the ethical or unethical use of AI for hacking into, or hopefully for defending business systems. Although I don't see anything out there, I see it more as a tactical nuclear weapon of destruction by bad guys than I do as any kind of deterrent by businesses. But my real concern is the integrity of the code used in an AI. That to me, we're all underestimating. Hey, why would I go after the commercial when I own the code? And that to me we should all be laser focused on, as if you're interested in cybersecurity or interested in AI, the integrity. But we never do that. See, this is a story that repeats itself over and over and over. Technology first, security second. Internet security, internet first, internet security second. Cloud, wireless, you just name it. New technology comes along, and we bolt on security after the technology. We all start using the technology. Hey, that's not secure, that Wi-Fi connection. People can easily connect to that. And okay, let's bolt something on. And our product vendors like it, because then they can sell us a Wi-Fi end-to-end encryption solution.
For an extra $9.99, you get a subscription.
Cash. That's right. To me, don't get me started on the industry, but to me, it's like the cybersecurity industry is a lot like the pharmaceutical industry. They make a lot of money. The cybersecurity industry profits from the insecurity of computing. Fact. Okay, why is it that all the major cybersecurity guys make money after every major breach? That's because we all panic and run out and buy more stuff. But the stuff didn't work, and that's why they got breached.
You ruined my final question before wrap up, because I was talking to another one of our consultants before I joined, and she goes, I wonder how many people, hack into a computer and then says, oh, my buddy over here is going to fix it. How much?
Yeah, exactly. And that happens.
It's not articulated like that, but getting back to my analogy, seriously, the pharmaceutical industry makes a lot of money selling remedies. Here's a cough syrup. Here's something to stop your sniffling and your sneezes. And but if they came up with a cure for the common cold tomorrow, there's not that much money, because you just have to buy it once. But here, buy this cough syrup 12 times a season. There's a lot of money in treating the symptoms of cybersecurity rather than finding a cure.
Of course.
Well, we are running out of time, and this has been a fun, dynamic conversation. But I'd love to hear what 3 things you want to leave top of mind with our audience.
I just bang on about what I've been banging on, Jenna, is that you have to understand cybersecurity is an oxymoron. And I'm not saying be afraid, be very afraid. I'm saying cybersecurity is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a secure computer. Deal with it. So the way to go is understand your appetite for breach, quantify that by conducting a risk assessment, and cure what you can cure, and just take on what you can take on day to day, like fire and life safety. There's no secret. There's no silver bullet for cybersecurity, and the industry doesn't tell us that, because the industry wants to sell us a cybersecurity product. But technically, running a business today, you need to understand the impact of a cybersecurity breach on your systems, and quantify that, and document that, and make it real, and talked about issue at the board level, and accept what you can accept, and fight what you can fight, and get on with it. But the other thing I would do is, please always remember, cybersecurity is not about protecting ones and zeros. This is data that we need to protect, because it's data about people's lives. And it may not be important to you and I as individuals, but we owe them the respect and understanding that it's important to them. If a customer gives you their data, the implied transaction is you'll protect it accordingly, according to their understanding of privacy, not yours. And so that's not your purview. I give you my credit card. I expect you to protect it, Mr. Amazon, whatever. I give you a picture of my cat throwing up or doing something cute on Facebook. I expect you to protect that. That's Snickers. That's my cat, in a very compromising position, Mr. Zuckerberg. Now, that's all. That's what I'm saying. And we don't do that. We don't consider the data user as this might be specific, and give them the benefit of the doubt and protect their data. We owe it to them. we owe it to each other as a society to protect each other's data. It's a privilege, not a, I don't know how it got to be just mandatory, but it's a privilege to take my credit card as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think the business world sees it like that. And that's the last thing I'd leave you with is this is real data and it deserves protection.
Excellent. Well, how can folks find out more about what you do or get in contact with you? Don't give them your address, though.
Yeah, no.
Here's where what we talked about just goes right out the window. So my number is, and my email address, and my website.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can just put in my name, Richard Hollis, on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. But the business is Risk Crew. It's riskcrew.com. And the services that we sell are for businesses, how to protect, how to identify all these things that we've been talking about, how to assess what data needs to be protected and why, and afford them the appropriate amount of security controls and test systems that they're resilient to hackers, and you've got backup systems and you can bounce back in the event that bad things do happen to you. But it's riskcrew.com, and the name is Richard Hollis, and if I've upset anybody, please do not hesitate to reach out and connect to me, but not physically. Yeah, I just want to make through Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook.com.
Jeff, if you're listening,
yeah, he knows where I live.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to be a part of our show.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.